I got up to Conservative MP Shannon Stubbs in Alberta's beautiful border city of Lloydminster. Now, Stubbs represents the northeastern Alberta riding of Lakeland. Her riding is huge. It's full of farm towns and oil patch communities. She's really been one of the most vocal and articulate advocates for Alberta and for Canada's energy sector in the House of Commons in her role as Deputy Energy Critic. Stubbs told me about how hard her riding has been hit by the economic downturn in Alberta's oil and gas sector.
The businesses and families in Lakeland, particularly in places like Lloyd and then other communities like St. Paul and Elk Point and Boyle, are suffering, they're struggling. Both those who are employed or working directly in the energy industry, but also, of course, in all the other sectors that are impacted by the energy industry and that are supported by having a robust and vibrant energy sector. So in Alberta, last month alone, we lost 22,000 full-time jobs, and we know that the energy industry overall lost more than 100,000 jobs last year. So it's dire straits in my constituency and in Alberta and in the energy sector, and the government continues to make things worse by talking about imposing a carbon tax, by hiking payroll taxes, by adding to the regulatory and red tape burden on industry, further hampering companies and individuals that are already facing a major challenge brought on by low global oil prices.
Now, we asked Stubbs about the new changes the Liberals are imposing to the National Energy Board that would make it harder for pipeline projects to be approved when Canadian jobs depend on these approvals. Listen.
Canada has a world-renowned regulatory system, and so I feel often like the Liberal government is manufacturing a crisis in confidence in the regulatory system. This is particularly the case in Alberta. Both the technology and the innovation and our expertise, as well as our regulatory best practices, have been adopted by energy-producing regions across the world. And the government keeps saying that there's been this collapse of public confidence in the regulatory system with no specifics, with no proof. And so they've added these extra layers and these extra hurdles, which will only add cost and layers and complexity and time delays to these critical energy infrastructure projects. One of the aspects that we think is most worrisome is the application of upstream greenhouse gas emissions to the pipeline approval process. First of all, because that's a bar that is only being set for the energy sector, that this government is not applying to any other industry or sector or infrastructure approval process. And also because it just continues to perpetuate this uncertainty and lack of clarity and difficulty for energy producers in an already difficult situation.
Now, I asked Stubbs to share some thoughts about the First Minister's meeting this past week and how Saskatchewan Premier Brad Wall spearheaded the opposition against a nationwide carbon tax.
The provincial government, of course, already has a carbon levy, and they've announced that they're going to increase the carbon taxes on all Albertans. It's the very worst time to hit energy producers harder, and the carbon tax is nothing to do with environmental stewardship or with environmental conservation or with minimizing the environmental footprint of development, which Alberta has such a strong track record through innovation and technology of doing already. It's a cash grab, and it's about wealth redistribution. And it's about Liberal politicians patting themselves on the back, pretending they're doing something about the environment, and they are going to hurt the very people who they profess to care about all the time, people who are unemployed or people on fixed incomes or seniors or people with low incomes, because when they attach a carbon tax to every product and good and service in the country, it increases costs for everybody in every corner of the country, and we think it's absolutely the wrong time and the wrong move.
Now, Stubbs shared her thoughts on the importance of Energy East. Listen.
It's time that our politicians right across the country recognize and advocate for Energy East as the important nation-building critical infrastructure that it is. This would tie us together economically, physically, symbolically. It would bring Western Canadian energy projects to Eastern Canada, which currently import crazily 86% of their oil from foreign countries. And we understand that Quebecers themselves, more than 80% of Quebecers want Western Canadian energy projects. They don't want to continue to prop up foreign oil. So it seems like Quebec politicians, provincial politicians, are out of touch with their population, and our federal Quebec MPs in the Conservative Party have been some of the strongest proponents for Energy East within our caucus. And I think it's time for the Prime Minister to stand up, to lead on this issue, to recognize the importance of ensuring our own domestic energy security and self-sufficiency, as well as recognize the importance of Energy East in getting much needed access to tide water.
And Stubbs has some stern words for the Liberals and the New Democrats who won't stand up for Canadian jobs in oil and gas. Here.
What is very troubling is, of course, the Prime Minister was asked when he visited Alberta if the Energy East project makes it all the way through, all the additional hurdles and hoops that he is adding to the regulatory process, whether or not his government would then approve Energy East. And he said not necessarily. So I think it's very troubling that Quebec is taking the action that they're taking. I'm thankful for Premier Brad Wall for being such a strong advocate on this. I myself, along with my other Conservative colleagues and our leader Ronna Ambrose, will continue to fight hard on this issue. But I think that federal politicians and other parties need to think long and hard about where the revenue has come from for the past several decades to raise the standard of living for every person in every community across Canada. And it has come from energy development and the economic engine of Alberta. And so the crisis in the energy sector and the importance of critical energy infrastructure is critical to all of Canada. It's not just a Lakeland or an Alberta problem. It is critical to every Canadian from coast to coast to coast, and our government needs to act.
Shannon Stubbs is standing up for her community, and she is standing up for Canadian jobs. It's a stark contrast to Prime Minister Trudeau, who won't even say if he will support Energy East, even if the National Energy Board approves it. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid.